All right, we're here. That's a clip for when we edit later. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Ralph Schudel Show. It is my absolute privilege today. We have a guest. We have an actual person who knows what they are doing on this show. Holy mackerel. My guest today is a very busy lady. She is the senior editor and an NWSL MLS writer for Last Word on Soccer, a social media coordinator and writer for the Equalizer, the North American Soccer Reporter's communication director, the chief editor and writer for the Pittsburgh Sports Castle, an NWSL media member, and oh, by the way, when she's not doing that, she moonlights as a soccer announcer on the ACC network. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the show, Rachel Kriger. Not relation to Ali Kriger, though.
No relation, because there is no extra E in my last name. But I don't know if you know RJ Allen. She's my friend. She does Backline Soccer, and we do a podcast together. And she said that when we first had conversations and we were comfortable with each other podcasting, she thought I was an Ali Kriger stan when she first when she first internet met me, and I laugh about it every single time, and it's probably my favorite story to tell people who are in NWSL media, RJ Allen used to think I was a Ali Kriger stan, and I mean, I like Ali Kriger, but I do not associate myself as a stan. So
I was thinking about this, and it's funny that you talk about this. The other day, I'm driving, and I'm at the tender age of 30 years old, so I am not hip anymore. I don't know the official definition of stan. Can you break that down for me? I understand that means you are passionate about something, but is there an official Urban Dictionary term for stan?
I mean, I'm sure there is something on the Urban Dictionary, but from what do you want my definition of it?
Yeah,
because
I mean, a cool cat's definition of stan. I would need that.
My definition of stan is honestly someone who pushes the envelope of being kind of creepy and obsessive about a person or a team or something. Because there were Allie and Ashlyn stans, long story short, trying to break into their wedding. No, don't do that. That's another story for
I didn't even know that.
Yeah, it was all, I was on Twitter. It was a mess. It was chaos.
Oh my god! So, what do they call them? Crashland? That's their couple name, right?
I
think it's Crashland. I've seen that on Twitter. I've seen it on Reddit. I've taken a deep dive into some of the U.S. women's national team ether. It's a dark place. It's a weird place. I'll just leave it at that.
It's a very weird place.
It's a weird place. We'll get to that. There's a story for everything. But right now, we're going to learn about your story. You are as we said, very accomplished young lady. You do a ton, but you are from the Steel City. But it wasn't always that way, right? You have, for folks that will inevitably see this video when I put it up at some point 7 months from now, you have the flag of Russia behind you there. Let's hear a little bit of the story, because I'm intrigued by it. You actually had a nice couple months ago, a moment, I believe, where your Twitter header was Rachel McKriger. I think that was the thing that you had on there.
Yeah,
you can dive into that a little bit, but then you talked about it. And I remember personally from my story, when I first met you and I saw you, it was during the World Cup in 2018, which was, that was in France, or not France. That was in
Russia.
Russia, yes. I'm having a brain fart. I'm getting old. See, I told you 30 years old. And I'm sitting there and I'm sitting there and I'm looking at your Twitter feed and I go, what the heck is this girl doing rooting for Russia? She's talking about their number 6. I remember him, Chernovinov or something like that.
Cheryshev.
And I'm remembering, I'm going, what the heck is she doing? She's American. She speaks American. Tell us a little bit about it, Rachel. I'm very intrigued to learn about this story here.
Yeah, so in addition to the Russian flag, I don't know how well you can see, I have the scarf of Azerbaijan too, because my father was from Azerbaijan, my mother was from Russia.
Okay.
So a little bit of mixture in there. I was born in Moscow. 3 days after I was born, I was put into an orphanage by my birth mother, and I lived there for about 14 months until my amazing parents here in the United States came and got me and my brother. My brother and I aren't related by birth. My parents always joke that he had the nice orphanage people and I did not have the orphanage people. I pretty much sat in a crib for the first 14 months of my life doing nothing and associating with nobody and not speaking. because I didn't really learn any language or anything at all. English was my first language. I don't really know Russian. I have that Duolingo app, but
Sure.
it's really it's really hard to keep your keep on top of that when you're doing 20 million things.
Hmm.
Um, but
Please,
yeah,
I
I
read
mean,
your accreditations. I'm winded
you
looking
didn't
at
even
them.
get into school either.
Oh my gosh.
So but yeah, it's I've always wanted to really learn the language. It's very interesting because my brother doesn't really care about, you know, being from Russia. He doesn't care about any of that stuff. He has his life here in the United States and he just kind of rocks with that. But me, it's always been something in my mind. It's been in the forefront of my mind. I didn't find out until I was 14 years old, and it kind of it changed my life. Really, it did. It did not make me, I guess, unappreciate my parents at all, because they made a countless sacrifice to fly to Russia. My mom had told me that they flew to Russia to meet us and to get all of the paperwork started and whatnot. And they came back home and they landed. And 20 minutes after they landed, they were booking their flights to Russia because they got the call back saying that they could come get us.
Holy
So
moly.
my parents weren't even in the States for like 24 hours and they were already on a plane back to come get us. So,
Have you
and I
ever
think
asked them what that jet lag was like?
my dad always says he didn't leave nothing there. He ain't going back because of the jet lag and because of the food. So,
Oh my gosh, that's the rib stick in good meals there too. I mean, that is you put the calories on obviously because you're working hard in that society. That's how it is there.
yeah.
So talk about, I mean, we've talked about your Russian heritage, which is a great story. That's fantastic. But you also live in another cultural hotbed. That came out weird there. A cultural hotbed in Pittsburgh, which you see a lot of Slavic traditions, you see Russian, you see Italian, you see a lot of great things there. Let's talk about the food scene for a second, and
Yes.
specifically Permane Brothers. For those of you that have not been out to Permane Brothers and that have never had the privilege, I fortunately have had the privilege. What is Permane Brothers, and why don't people understand it?
Because we put coleslaw and French fries on our sandwiches. It is literally it's not like a sub. It is a sandwich on sliced bread, and you get, it's like Mancini's bread. It's the thick cut Italian stuff, and you get that on a sandwich. The famous sandwich there, what I always get is the Pittsburgher
Yes.
with the meat patty, and then you get the cheese, the coleslaw, and the French fries. I actually don't like coleslaw on my sandwiches. I don't like coleslaw in general. Maybe that's the Russian or the Azeri in me, but I don't like coleslaw, so I always give it to my dad, and he just piles it on his sandwich. But it is delicious. We honestly, like, pre-lockdown would probably go there like once every 2 weeks, because
Oh, that's
and
fantastic.
as soon as it opened, my dad was like for takeout and stuff, he was like, we gotta get it. I need it.
Well, you got to
So
support it too, because that's one of the businesses. God forbid if it falls by the wayside, it's like that's a cultural meltdown in Pittsburgh waiting to happen.
yeah, and we're spoiled right now because there's one to the town, like on the east of us, and then there's one now on the top of the west of us. So we have pickings on how we want to get our permanis. So
Pick it.
we're a little bit spoiled now.
That's a Yinzer saying if I've ever heard it. We got pickings on what
We
we
got
got.
pickings.
That's a Yinzer saying. Holy mackerel. Okay, so we've talked about Russia. We've talked about Azerbaijan, which, let's rewind to that for a second. Didn't know it was actually a place until the United States played them in a friendly a few years ago. I'll be completely honest with you on that, and I'm sorry if that sounds ignorant, but I didn't know. And then I became infatuated because it is a very unique spelling of a country. That's totally off topic, but let's get back to it. So we've talked about where you're from, everything like that. You are a sports lass. You are the number one sports lass in all of sports lassing. Pittsburgh is a great sports town, obviously. When we're not talking soccer, which we will here in a second, it's the soccer podcast. Who are you rooting for? Do you keep your allegiances in the Steel City, or are we abroad?
I keep my allegiances pretty much in the Steel City. I'm a big Steelers fan. I like the
You didn't say it
Pirates.
right.
The Stillers. I'm sorry.
There
I'm
you
a big
go.
Stillers fan. I actually don't hear many people say that in Pittsburgh, so it always surprises me when people are like, it's the Stillers. It actually catches me off guard. I'm like, wait, that's a thing. But yeah, I'm a big Steelers fan. I like the Pirates. I like going to the games because they're cheap and you can get tickets
It's a
on like
beautiful
game
park
time for
too.
like $4. Yeah, and it has a view that is amazing. I refuse to support the club itself because I don't like Bob Nutting. He took my job back in 2017, so I'm not a huge fan of him.
Oh,
Um,
hi Bob. How you
and
doing? Hope you're listening.
yeah, hey Bob, what's up? But I mean, it's a beautiful park to go to, cheap tickets and good food, so I like it. I'm not very into hockey. I've gone to a couple games.
Sacrilegious.
I know it's sacrilegious. I know I just blew off my entire Russia card, but
Oh, especially with
it just,
Malkin too. You have the native son of Russia playing for your hockey team,
I know.
and you are just like, nah, it's
Well,
cool.
hey, listen. I went to the games and I liked it and it was a cool experience. But like when I got home, I was like, oh yeah, maybe I'll like watch it on TV. And I got home, watched it on TV, and I was so disinterested. It was just one of those things where it's like I'll go to it live. It's a great live, but at home on TV, I'm just I can't get into it. I don't know what it is, but
It's
it is
soccer on ice. Come
I
on,
that's
Rachel.
and that's what I tell people. I don't understand how I don't get it because it is soccer on ice. Um, but I don't know. But I support the team. I try to go to a couple games a year. My friend is a huge Penguins fan, so I just, shoot for her birthday,
The
Penguin
Gu-
tickets.
the
For Christmas,
Gwins,
Penguin tickets. So
the
what
Gwins
was
at
that?
the Gwins at PPG Bank or PPG Paints Arena.
Yeah.
What an odd sports venue name for, like, that's a mouthful. It should just. I liked it when it was the Console Energy Center because it's like that sounds regal. That's great, but no, PPG Paints Arena. Like, okay,
I still call it the console.
there you go. I like that, the console. That's cool. All right, let's shift back. Enough of that other sports talk. Okay, you're a soccer lady. That's what we've established. You and I first became aware of each other. I want to say it was 2017. I think if we go back uh, via the WPSL. For those that don't know, the WPSL is the women's professional or premier soccer league. I always messed it up because they play like pros. They're all basically just super badass. You can cuss on this show too, by the way. Super badass, great athletes. The team I was with, the Columbus Eagles at the time, battled your Steel City FC at a game at I can't remember, an all-girls school that was like a stone's throw away from Duquesne.
Yeah, the Ellis
Um,
School.
the Ellis School,
It's a
which
hike to get to, man.
let me tell you a story. This is a true to life story, slightly embarrassing. This is going to take us off topic here for a second. I'm driving into Pittsburgh from Youngstown. I'm from Youngstown originally, as I told you, the other side of the border where the Ohio peeps. I'm driving in. I get into downtown Pittsburgh. I need to use the restroom. I need to relieve myself. And I can't find a bathroom. It's all one-way streets. I think I pulled off at like a sit-go or something like that. And of course, it being Pittsburgh and them being actually smart, they're like, it's employee use only or whatever. And I'm like, oh, God bless it. So basically, I get to the Ellis School. I go around to the first entrance, find out it's back around the hill, the dipsy doodle around the hill, park around by the apartments and everything over there. I can't find that, but I really got to go to the bathroom. So I find a park that is next to the Ellis School, whip the car in there, see two porta potties, throw my car into the square spot that had the crosses across it that you clearly cannot put a car in. And I said, there's where it's at. If I get towed, it's worth it at this point. Like, I'm like, it's worth it at this point. So I throw the car in there, take care of business, go to the Ellis School, go do the game, whatever. I don't know why that was pertinent to the story, but it's the one memory I have of the Ellis School and Duquesne University at the time, because it got close. We got dangerously close to disaster there. Let me ask you this. Enough about my stupid story, though. Was the WPSL kind of your start into the industry? Because it was a great jumping off point for me. It was, I got started in Massa Report when I started working for them, and basically was pitched the idea that we need somebody to cover the local women's soccer team. And I said, of course, because I'm going to be honest with you, and I've been on numerous shows with this before. I find women's soccer a little bit more entertaining than the men, because I see the men get run over, and you see the Neymar. You look no further than Neymar rolling 20 yards after he gets tackled in the World Cup. But you see Julie Ertz going for a slide tackle on Marta or something like that. It's hard contact. They get up, they high five, they lift each other up, and they go after it. That's what I think the allure for me was the WPSL. Was that, like me, was that a jumping off point for you in the business?
Yeah, it was how Equalizer noticed me. I had been writing about women's soccer with the NWSL for Last Word before with a former site called Real Sports Entertainment Network. It is not a thing anymore, which kind of stinks, but yeah, that was kind of my start. We have a great guy here in Pittsburgh named John Krasinski, and he runs the Pittsburgh Soccer Now site, and he reached out to me and said, hey, you love women's soccer. I'd been writing about the Riverhounds for him and whatnot,
Mm-hmm.
which is our USL team, as you know.
Mm-hmm.
And he was like, we need someone to cover the women. I said, we have a women's team? What? So he was like, here's Still FC. Here's their contact. Here, go talk to them. So I talked to their GM, Steph, and then I met Tomo Ovenden,
She's
the
a great lady too, by the way.
Steph is amazing.
Very energetic.
Steph is super energetic, and she's so passionate about building women's soccer in Pittsburgh, and I love to see it. Steel City FC is now Hotspurs now because they merged with the NPSL club, which is great. And it works because Tomo coaches there too. And Tomo Ovenden, I've never had somebody call me mate before Tomo did. And it's probably my favorite thing. Like it makes me smile over the phone when he's like, all right, mate, it was good talking to you, mate. And I'm like, I love when he calls me
Cheers,
that.
lad.
It's awesome. And I tell him cheers, and he's like, oh, cheers. But he's awesome. He's really great, and he's also very passionate about the women's game. Bummed to see that their season, at least this for the summer, got canceled. They might be potentially doing a fall one. I personally don't see it happening, but either way, I still think it is such a good platform for these college and high school aged kids to really kind of lift off their own careers. And there was a player for a couple years named Christina Reitel, and now she plays for Pitt women's soccer. So I've got to chat with her through doing work with the ACC network, and it's always a joy to see those I guess quote unquote homegrown players getting the recognition that they deserve, and going to good schools and playing soccer still in their city. It's awesome.
And that's one thing I think I enjoyed about the WPSL and still enjoy is my team was a little bit older. I don't know if you remember that. It was a lot of people a lot of former players. I think we had a couple old Akron Zips. We had our captain was a former Red Star Reserve player, and a lot of older players. But then they had a coaching change, and they started hitting more of that homegrown talent. And I use that air quotes because, as you know, in our line of work, homegrown is a multitude of different definitions, but you see the strength that we have with the Ohio Bobcats. You see these smaller schools that do really well, because I was talking about it with somebody the other day is, if you look at traditional college recruiting, yes, the D1 programs are going to be great. You're going to have those ACC schools like your North Carolina, your Pitt, NC State, schools like that to do pretty decent at it, but you really need to look at those Division II and Division III schools. And I know I'm coming off as a bit of a homer, somebody who's at a Division II school, because those players that play on those teams are sitting on those D1 benches, but they're perfectly capable of being starters at other schools in D1. And it's fun. Like you said, that maturation process and seeing how people grow and mature and how their game evolves, particularly, obviously we're not on the field, but it's fun to watch. And if you could give kind of a ringing endorsement of the WPSL for somebody who hasn't seen a game, how would Rachel Kriger, sell the WPSL to the casual fan?
I would just talk about the young talent. It's always awesome to see young players develop and work with some of those veteran players. We had a couple players. I don't know if they're still there, but when we were Steel City FC, there were some players who were, a couple years out of college. They had families, but they still just loved the game, and they just wanted to play again. So I think that just kind of that development paired with those veteran players who have been there before, who have played college and whatnot, I think it's a great product, because it is kind of that stepping stone to the NWSL. I don't remember the exact number, but this past year for the NWSL college draft, I think at least half of the players were playing in the WPSL, which is a great thing for the league. Cause when you look at, technical tiers, NWSL is the top dog, obviously.
Yeah.
And then the WPSL is technically the second tier league. But then you look at the men's side and you look at their second league or tier league, and it's the USL Championship. And that is a legitimate professional setting. So I think that the WPSL deserves a little bit more recognition. I think it deserves a little bit more resources. But either way, they're still a great league, and they expand every year. They had a ton of teams that were going to come in this year. They had to realign the conferences and whatnot. So I think that it's just a great product, and I think that people should really pay attention to it because your next superstar could be there.
Yeah, and I mean, I know a couple of years I missed the boat on this, but the year before I started covering the Eagles, Dayton Dutch Lions had Rose Lavelle, which you would have the chance to watch a Rose Lavelle play in a college stadium in the summer for less than $5. I mean, you can't see any type of value like that at all in any type of sport, really, unless you get lucky that you go into like minor league baseball or something like that, where you get the guy out on the rehab start or something like that. Andrew McCutcheon, old Pirates reference for you, that they're out on the rehab start or something. But yeah, I mean, WPSL is fantastic. It's a wonderful league, and I agree with you. I don't know if you remember, maybe I'm dating myself a little bit, but there was talk about the USL starting a women's league to rival the WPSL. And I actually was kind of pulling for that because the USL, no disrespect to the WPSL, seemed a little bit more organized. And like you said, they were having the realignment, and it's all about getting that money to it. And unfortunately, the women's game doesn't have the money that it needs to fully succeed in the United States. There's still plenty of resources and stuff like that, but we need more money like we see on the men's side, because you can have 4 divisions on the men's side with the USL Championship, USL League One, League Two, and then NPSL. Even though some of the NPSL teams can't afford to pay their players, they're still doing much of the WPSL action there, but that's a story for a different day. So you said you found your way to Last Word on Soccer, Equalizer as well through the WPSL. How did you end up at Last Word on Soccer, and how long have you served there? Because I've been aware of you obviously for a little bit, but you have Big Red Matt Pollard over there too. God love him. We love that guy over there.
I love him.
He's a great dude. But you're working with Big Red over there, and how long have you been on with Last Word on Soccer and applying your craft over there?
You know what's funny, Ralph, is that I have a really, really bad memory. So I never, when people were like, "Oh, how did you and your friends first meet?" I can't tell them. I don't remember how I met. I don't remember first conversations I had with some of my old coworkers. I don't remember any of my first conversations with Dansbury and Matt Pollard over at Last Word on Soccer. But I just remember seeing the application and saying, "Why not? Let's go for it." And I was there for about a year. I went up to Matt. I was like, "Hey, I know I'm new, but like, let's Skype. I have some things I want to go over with you." And Matt was like, "Oh yeah, okay, sure. Why not?" And I said, we need NWSL coverage. I will spearhead that. And we need US women's national team coverage. And he was like, "Done. It's yours." So Matt made it happen, got me all set up with all of that. And, just kind of let me rock with it. And I've been able to bring on a writer in Shannon Torres, who's a great young writer, and she's really learning her craft, and she's still in college. So, and she's busy because she runs track in college, I believe.
Holy moly.
Yeah, she does a lot. But she is always willing to help me, and she's going to be helping me out with the tournament. So that's exciting to have. But yeah, Matt kind of just gave me the green light to say, I said, "Here's what I want to do." Matt was like, "Yeah, dude, go for it for sure." And I was there for about a year, and Matt was like, "Hey, and it was funny because I had, chatted with my friend John Bava, and I said, "I'm thinking I want to be an editor for our site, but like, I don't know if I ask, I don't know if I wait." And John had messaged me back and said, "Wait 2 days." And I said, "Okay, 2 days." And John had left the site to go write for Last Word on Football a little bit more and to just, live his life. And Matt messaged me 2 days later and was like, "Hey, we want you to be an editor." And I said, "Alrighty, I guess that's why I waited 2 days."
Well, you helped close that gap, because I remember seeing John make the commute all the way from Buffalo incredible commute, by the way. 2 crew games to cover the crew and be there, and then eventually I just never saw him again. Except the only time I see him is when he pops up on my Facebook feed doing CrossFit videos. Which guy's in shape. The guy's in shape. I mean,
John
that's
Bava is ripped. Like we were talking off air, listeners, about the MLS Cup is back trophy and how we just wanted it to be the MLS logo on a ripped back. And I said Josie Altidore, but maybe it should just be John Bava.
I mean, the guy, I would venture to say probably has 0.1% body fat. I mean, I don't think he's touched a carbohydrate in his life. But no, that's no shot on John. John's a wonderful human. He's fantastic. But no, that literally, I just had like a mind blown moment when you said that, and you're like, psh, psh, and I'm like, oh yeah, that's where everything comes together. So I learned something live on air, guys. You heard my mind blow live on air. So then you are at the Equalizer, which I think personally, honestly, it's one of the best kept secrets on the internet, but that's the problem. It's a secret, unfortunately, and it shouldn't. Why is the Equalizer so important to the world of soccer writing right now? You have paywall sites like The Athletic, you have SB Nation, which isn't one, and sponsors take up our entire articles, but that's a different story for a different time. But in a world of paywall writing with The Athletic, with the Equalizer and everything, I think you guys do a lot of great things really well and more top tier, and that's no shot at any colleagues at all or anything like that. But why is the Equalizer such a special place?
I think it's just because Jeff made it that way. Jeff Kassouf, our managing editor, the owner of it all, he really has established a place that, if you bring ideas to him, he rocks with it. And I was hired as a social media coordinator, but I said to him, I'm a writer too. I want to help write. I want to do things. And I came to him this off season, him and Dan Lauletta, and I got to give Dan a huge shout out because Dan has helped me craft myself into a better writer and has, tried to help me become a better podcaster. Sometimes I'm a little stubborn. No shock to anyone. But
It's the
Jeff
same
has
way on
really
this side too, Rach. It's fine. It's fine.
it's just how we roll. Um, but Jeff has been great. I came to him with the ideas of, maybe doing some feature stories this off season, and he was like, yeah, go for it. Let me know if you need anything. So he's given me like free reign to do stuff and to actually leave kind of like a print on there. We do a ton of graphic work together, him and I collaborating, and it's been a lot of fun just kind of growing our skills and making some really cool pieces of art with the incredible art that our photographers like Louis Gettier give us. And it's a lot of fun. I really enjoy being with Equalizer. It's no knock to any other site, but I wouldn't want to be on another team. I really, really just enjoy the culture, the family that we have at Equalizer. And when I met pretty much everyone down at the final in 2019 last year in November, Dan was like, hey, let's go for lunch. Let's talk about each other. Let's not talk about soccer. So Dan and I went to lunch. Jeff was constantly, checking in with me, asking me how my first final was, if I'm okay, is everything overwhelming? Just do I need help? Got to meet Claire Watkins, got to meet a ton of people on our team.
Claire's
Lewis,
fantastic.
yeah, Lewis, who is down in North Carolina, is probably like one of the sweetest souls I've ever met in my life. And I just love him tremendously because he's such a good person and such an amazing photographer. And I learned so much stuff from him. It's ridiculous. But the family vibe that we have at Equalizer, I think, is unlike any other. It's really, really cool. And I like that we're all spread out. And I totally forgot to mention my friend Hannah DiLorenzo, who's down in Florida and
Yeah.
usually photographs the Pride games. Her and I have become like sisters almost. We're very tight. We text quite a bit, and we were really, really trying to get to that Pride opener this year. And of course it did not happen, but we were like planning to hang out before and after the match. And it's a great vibe that we have at Equalizer. So I love it.
You got me hooked up with her on Instagram, and I actually trade messages with her from time to time. I got a
Yeah, she's
question,
awesome.
an off the wall question for you, since you were down at the final. Did you have the privilege of meeting Sandy Herrera from the Red Stars? She does Red Stars coverage, and she was
Sandra
with.
Herrera, yeah, she's amazing. Oh
Do you
my
have a
gosh.
funny Sandra story? Because I feel like everybody I walk into, like, when I was at Toyota Park last year, like Sandra is the mayor of Toyota Park in Red Star Soccer. Do you have any interesting experiences or anything like that you can share with Sandra?
I don't remember a lot, but I do remember hanging out with her a little bit. We had this like Equalizer. I don't remember if it was the night before or like 2 nights before the match. Like we had this party at this like bar and whatnot, and like a couple players and stuff came. And Sandra, man, she like was so funny to be around. She's like telling all these stories, talking to like literally, it didn't matter who you were. It didn't matter if she knew you or not, if you were there for the party or if you were just there for the bar. She was going over to talk to you. And she is just one of the, um, I'm trying to figure out the word, but one of the most charismatic human beings
Oh my
I've
God.
ever met in
Absolutely.
my life. She's funny as all hell. She's nicer than nice can be. And for me, for going to the final, it was my first final, so I was nervous. There was actually a point where Grant Wall was there, and I
Sure.
elbowed Jeff, and I said, "Can you introduce me?" And Jeff was like, "Oh yeah, Grant, this is Rachel Grant," and I was like, "What?"
That
But
was it. It's so
yeah,
nonchalant too.
it was yeah, it was nothing to him. But Sandra, she kept checking in with me. We're not even on the same team, and she was like, "Hey, like, you good? Everything good?" Like, she saved me a spot at one of the press conferences, and it was just, yeah, she's awesome. Her and
I,
Claire both are really amazing. The people in Chicago are John Halloran, they're all amazing.
I had the privilege of working with Sandra at Hot Time for a while, and I traded texts with her and direct messages, but for a while her Twitter avatar wasn't her, so I never knew what she looked like. And so I went and I worked a Red Stars game one time, and I'm setting up, and I was shooting the game. It was actually last season against the Dash, with the Red Stars in the Dash, and I'm setting up in the press box. And I don't know if you've ever been up there. It's an open air press box. Everybody's sitting down and everything. I'm setting up, and this woman gets up, and I'm like, and you know how you can sense when somebody's looking at you, and I'm like,
Yeah.
I was like, I need to look up. I was like, I need to look up. And I look and I see her badge, Sandra Her. I was like, oh, she goes, you better give me a hug right now. And I was like, okay. I was like, okay.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you what, she gave me the most hospitable hug to this day. I get chills thinking about it because I was like, I'm home. Like, this is
Yeah.
like, I'm like, I'm home. This is it, man.
I got a Sandra hug. They're pretty awesome.
It's literally the greatest thing ever. And she goes, how are you doing? How was your drive? Where are you staying? Like, I was just like, oh my God. I was like, Sandra. I was literally so happy. And then I texted her after the game. I was like, thank you for the hospitable welcome. Chicago's always home to me. Thank you. I appreciate it. Like, and
Yeah, yeah.
that woman could win an election for the mayor of Chicago. I honest to God think she could do that. But
Yeah.
that's,
I'd vote. I mean, if I lived in Chicago, I'd vote for her.
oh, she's wonderful. But are you ready to talk soccer? Let's talk live soccer.
Let's
How
do
about
it.
that? Oh my God, it's been like
It's
105 days.
back.
It's back. We're back. The NWSL Challenge Cup began this weekend with the North Carolina Courage defeating the Portland Thorns 2-1 in the early game. Rachel was busy for that one. And then the Red Stars falling to the Washington Spirit. The Red Stars of Chicago falling to the Washington Spirit by the same score line in the late game. So a lot to take in. Obviously, we are in kind of a interesting spot in American sports. I think it's awesome, though, that women's sports have kind of the wherewithal to show the guys, hey, here's how you do it. This is how we do it safely. This is how we do everything. NWSL management, top to bottom, seem to have put on a great thing. I was very impressed with the sponsorship, too, taking a look at the money that's coming in for this tournament. All in all, let's think about the action on the field, and then we'll talk about some of the hot button issues here on the weekend. First day on the field, what are your thoughts?
It was a little sluggish, and I think everyone agreed with that who was playing. But for the most part, I thought it was pretty good quality of soccer being played. North Carolina is going to North Carolina, and it took a 94th minute goal from Lynn Williams to seal the deal. But hey, if it does the job, it does the job. And I'm just so gutted for Allie Watt tearing her ACL. She confirmed that
Mm-hmm.
today on her Instagram page, and I'm just like 10 minutes into your pro career, it sucks, and I'm so upset for her, and I just hope that she is okay and that her sophomore season is going to be amazing. But North Carolina looked good. I think both teams looked sluggish, and I didn't realize, and John Halloran from Equalizer pointed this out too. I didn't realize how much Portland's roster changed
Yeah.
until I saw their lineup. And
Yeah.
I was just like, holy crap. Like, they got Becky Sauerbrunn, which is amazing, and she is amazing, and she's a boss. But, like, they lost a lot of really good players, like Caitlin Ford and Dagny Brynjar's daughter. Like, there are so many good players that were with Portland that are not with Portland anymore. And they definitely have the talent to back it up. And I don't think that losing Tobin Heath is going to kill the Thorns because, I
No.
mean, in all honesty, when her and Megan Rapinoe said that they weren't going to play, totally legitimate reasons, totally respectable decisions as well with Kristen Press, who opted out too. I was just like, it's not good. Kristen Press might hurt the Royals, but the other two aren't going to hurt because of all the international duty they do. All of the, like, Rapinoe played 6 games last year in the NWSL, and OL Reign with a half injured roster
Yeah.
made the NWSL challenge, not challenge cup, the NWSL playoffs. So I think that they have a good team to do it again this year, but that's a different topic, obviously.
Well, I mean, even talking about Bixby too for a second. I mean, Bixby, you
Yeah, she
forgot
was
that
great.
she, that was her first professional start, and that she, I believe, is a 3-year pro now. But I was texting with a coach of mine that I knew, and I said, man, she's a stud, because I mean, ideally, you don't want your goalkeeper to be a focal point of a game. And she came up big when she needed to, but outside of that, there weren't really any big issues.
Dude, I wouldn't want my professional debut to be happening against the North Carolina Courage. I'll tell you that much. Like,
It's a baptism by fire.
that is a major baptism by fire. And I mean, Simone Charlie scored her first goal against the Courage, so that's definitely a little bit of bragging rights, even though it didn't turn out to be a victory. But yeah, I like Bella Bixby. I'm surprised they didn't go with Britt Eckerstrom, but I'm excited to see who's going to be in net for the Thorns in the next game. I think that they're going to have a pretty lively rotation between the two when it comes in the group stage, and then they're going to make a decision for the knockout rounds. But I think that no matter what, when everything is said and done, they're going to be taking a backseat to Adriana Franch as soon
Of
as she
course.
comes back to injury. But it's good to have options behind. As a Pittsburgh Steelers fan, I would know that after what we endured last year. Um, but
Duck.
Bella Bix, Doc and Mason. But oh, bane of my existence. Anyway, Bella Bixby had a really good showing, and I was really excited to see her. I remember seeing the lineup sheet, and I thought, who?
Yeah,
Where's Britt
right.
Eckerstrom? But it was definitely an entertaining match. But I think the later match was much better in terms of quality, in terms of what happened. I'm sorry to Sandra, I'm sorry to John, and I'm sorry to Claire for saying that, because they're in Chicago, probably cursing me out right now. But but I mean, Chicago also had a lot of roster turnover, and it's way too early to say the team is in danger because they lost Sam Kerr. I'm excited to see what Kealia Ohai-Watt is going to do. I thought she looked good in the game. She just couldn't quite finish, and she wasn't really given the chances to finish. So I'm excited to see what she can do in the next game. And I hate to sound like a bandwagoner, because I have been a Washington Spirit quote unquote fan, because I do need to
Sure.
stay unbiased.
Sure.
Yeah, sure. They're the closest team geographically. So I was like, yeah, okay, it makes sense. I'll root for them. Um, but I really like Washington's team, and everyone talked about how young they were last year and how they're not going to do nothing because they're so young. Sam Staub, Jordan DiBiase, Tegan McGrady being those rookies that really highlighted their class last year.
Hmm.
And they pushed for a playoff spot. They didn't get it, but they came really darn close. Like, there was a legitimate decision day in the
Yeah.
NWSL, and it felt like the first time in forever. So to see Washington have, at least right now, knock on wood, a healthy Rose Lavelle paired with those young players is awesome to see. And I love the youth on this Washington team.
Hmm.
And it's all around the board, because Andy Sullivan's still young. Aubrey Bledsoe's still young. I mean, really, to me, the only veteran you've got is Tori Huster, who
Sure.
that's a great veteran to have on your team, first and foremost. But I mean, it is crazy to look at the roster, to see all these players and see all the young talent, and only with the second year head coach. So really looking forward to see what Washington can do. I don't think anyone's going to top the Courage in this tournament, but I think Washington could be the one to give them a little bit of a bite.
And I feel that way too a little bit, especially taking a look at it. And I'll have you rank some teams here in a little bit, but let's talk about the moment that took a lot of headlines, which was at the start of the game with the national anthem. I know for me, and I'm getting chills talking about it right now, there was a very special moment between Casey Short and Julie Ertz where Casey Short, who is a black soccer player, African-American soccer player, was overcome with emotion. And Julie Ertz, being the great human that Julie Ertz is, got down beside her and the two shared an emotional cry. I would be lying and telling you I didn't have a little bit of a tear too during the time. And, that was a good human moment. It was kind of a once in a generational moment and a beautiful summary kind of the state of the world right now, where we need to kind of be together as one. What were your thoughts as you were seeing that play out? Because I know that was quite the talk of social media.
I wasn't thinking, I was just feeling, man. It was definitely hard to look at, and it's a good thing that it was hard to look at, because and it made people uncomfortable, which it should make people uncomfortable. But I mean, just to see the solidarity and the friendship and the love that was just in that moment, the raw emotion was just absolutely beautiful. And we can talk about who stood and who knelt and who did this and who did that. I want substantial change too. I want like legitimate backing of things. People yelled at Ashley Hatch because she decided to donate her bonuses and I think some percentage of money to a Black Lives Matter branch foundation of sorts,
Mm-hmm.
or whatnot, but she stood for the anthem. It's a difficult decision for anyone to make, and that doesn't mean that Ashley Hatch and Rachel Hill, who stood with the Red Stars, it doesn't mean that they hate their black teammates. It doesn't mean that they hate black people. You can't, I think Steph Yang posted it on Twitter when she said, forcing people to kneel is just as bad as forcing them to stand. And I couldn't agree more to that. People have a choice in the matter, 100%. But like, I know for me personally, if I was on that field and I saw Casey Short, I would 100% be taking a knee with her, because just seeing the trauma that she experienced with hearing the national anthem and all the maybe memories for her. I don't know. I can't speak on her behalf, but just all of the emotional stuff going on there was difficult to see, but it was also heartwarming to see uh, someone letting their emotions out, because, you hear this talk about stick to sports,
Mm-hmm.
And,
Absolutely.
I think that goes with emotion too. This is a word salad, so tell me if I make sense.
Salad.
um, but I think stick to sports is kind of like the same thing with emotions. Like, you can't feel things on the court. It's something that
Sure.
Kevin Love has preached about for so many years in regard to mental health with basketball players in the NBA. And so to see an athlete just kind of let it all out was
Mm-hmm.
really, really special to see. And I think Claire, my friend Claire Watkins from the Equalizer, she kind of not hypothesized, but kind of thought about the moment and said, without a doubt, she believed that, when Julie Ertz was sitting there and her hand was like this, almost like kind of in a cup, for those who aren't watching us, but
Sure.
hearing us,
Sure. Great
um,
radio.
she said that she thought that was a moment of prayer.
Mm-hmm.
And that to me was so special. I'm sure from my ramblings on Twitter, I'm an extremely devout Catholic. I wear my cross on my neck. I go to daily mass. I love my church. I help out constantly. And just faith is very important to me. And Julie Ertz has been always one of those players who has been never shy about talking about her faith and saying that she is an athlete who does the work of God first and then her team second. And it warmed my heart too, to see that and to see just that. I don't know if that was what was happening in that moment, but knowing Julie Ertz and her character, I wouldn't be shocked. And I thought that it was just, it was a great moment.
I think too, honestly, if I'm in that moment as Casey Short, or even if it's me, I mean, I can't speak into that position, obviously, but there's no better ally I think I would want to have in my corner in that moment than Julie Ertz, just because, I feel like she could talk anybody down. And maybe that's a Becky Sauerbrunn thing from when you think about it in the World Cup in 2015 when Ertz committed the penalty and almost conceded to Germany, and she was crying and she was kind of in a haze. Sauerbrunn came over to her and said, they calmed her down and everything. It almost kind of seemed like it came full circle, obviously with a little bit of a different take on it. But I think that was powerful. And I remember just kind of sitting there and going, we're witnessing history. You sit back and you look at the photos that you and I have seen in textbooks growing up, looking at history books. I think that photo is going to resurface again somewhere along the line in a college textbook or in like a history book or something, because we are no doubt living very historical times right now. And I'd like to think that women's soccer is on the forefront of this because we are seeing cultural change. I think, you know, I think we need to have a discussion of where the national anthem needs to be inserted into sporting events and where it should be left alone. Um, I think there are some things we need to work out. We need to work on reform on that, and no doubt. But the fact that if you're seeing players and people get upset, like Casey Short, Sarah Gordon had a beautiful post that she wrote today about the national anthem. Um, I think if people are getting that upset about it, that's your sign. Things need to change. We need to have a talk about some things, and I think that was a great moment. But there was pushback. We noticed, like you said, Rachel Hill was a player on the Red Stars that chose to stand. Doesn't necessarily mean that she's against her teammates at all or anything like that. Red Stars owner Arnim Whistler took to social media to kind of share his thoughts a little bit, and I thought Arnim made some good points. But you had the privilege of being into another kind of portion of the story that not many folks got to see, and that was kind of the mixed zone at the end of the game, which, according to the Athletics, Meg Lynn and yourself, you were reporting some players weren't made available following the game to take questions, and some reporters out there from Saturday's game said that it was, quote, to keep game questions only, keep it game questions only. Could this, in this pandemic world that we're moving into, could this be a dangerous precedent we're setting in sports journalism as many of us are working remotely during these uncertain times?
I don't want to say too much in kind of like quote unquote blasting the NWSL, but they also need to be blasted in some different ways. I don't know if that makes sense at all.
No, it does.
But
Because they were openly marketing that
sure.
anthem moment for a while, and it wasn't, I believe Jonathan Tannenwald tweeted that it wasn't up until I think today that they actually revised it with a shorter clip sans the anthem moment.
Right, the highlights and everything. Yeah, I think that, there have been kind of like kinks that we need to work with the tournament, questions not getting asked properly. The fact that we can't request players, they're being brought to us. That's not how it usually works. So I think there's a lot of stuff that needs to be figured out. But any time that you're kind of limiting reporters to do their jobs isn't good. Whether it's sports, whether it's politics, whether it's technology, whether you're writing about freaking NASCAR. I mean, there anytime you're limiting reporters to do their job is not good. And we had asked for clarification multiple times, and I will give Kim McCauley a huge shout out because she's very bullheaded and I love it.
You
And
see that on Twitter a lot.
she was making it known that she needed an answer to whether it was Rachel Hill that didn't want to talk, if it was Casey that didn't want to talk, or if we or the Red Stars were barring them, if what was going on. We needed to know what was happening so we could report accurately. And there was a lot of confusion, and heck, that game started at 10 o'clock at night Eastern
Sure.
Standard Time. So like it's 2 a.m. and we're like just finding out answers. And I had shut my laptop off and I was like, I ain't getting out of this bed. I need to wake up at like 8 a.m. That ain't happening.
Sure.
But it was just it's kind of everything is like tinkering around with things, seeing what works, what doesn't work. And I will give credit where credit is due. The people who are running the show are asking us for feedback and telling us they want us to know what they can do better. So we're all just trying to work together right now. It's kind of a hodgepodge, a mess.
Sure.
But we're just trying to make the most of it and see what happens. But, historically, kind of on topic, kind of also off topic, I went to my first league games last year as a credentialed reporter for both MLS and NWSL. And I had went to NWSL first. I went to the May 4th match of Washington and the Reign. And, I was wondering how everything
You have
was
to say the
working. And
name
it was
correct. You have to say the name correctly now.
Reign.
Reign.
They were just Reign FC at that point. So the soon to be Reign.
I just wanted to work Reign into the reference here at some point today.
We had to get in the podcast at some point. But I was wondering, I was kind of sticking with people who like knew the grounds and knew kind of like everything that was going on. And yeah, I was wondering how it works. And I thought, oh, this is kind of strange that we get more access at Riverhounds games than, they do at NWSL games.
Mm-hmm.
And then I go to MLS up in Columbus to go see Sounders versus Columbus.
Never heard of them.
And never heard of the Crew, really?
Who are them?
Or Seattle? What?
Aren't they in Austin now?
Oh, yeah, definitely. That jackass
okay.
of an owner moved them.
Oh, man, I love you. Great stuff.
Oh, was I allowed to say that?
That's going to go over well in Columbus, by the way, so that'll be fine. That's fine. No, you're fine.
I think I smell confession in my near future.
That's fine.
I went to the match and, thank God, Ryan, I think his name's Ryan Krasnu was there from the Sounders because I was like, I don't know what I'm doing. He was like, follow me. So we go down and, we got to talk to Schmetzer outside because, of course, I'm the Sounders beat writer. I was covering them. I was there for them. And then I was like, okay, so how does this work with the players? Alex Caulfield, their communication director, opens the door to the locker room and says, go on in. And I was like, what? What kind of madness is this? And like, I'm a 23-year-old female and I'm like walking around. I'm like, oh my gosh, I think I need to shield my eyes. Like,
oh yeah.
It was hilarious. And I will give a huge shout out to Kelvin Leardom because he is a sweetheart. And he was like, there was one point where he was like, no, look this way. Like, let me turn this way so you can just look at me. And I was like, okay. So Kelvin Leardom is an absolute sweetheart. So it was a pleasure with him. But yeah, it just like the disparities between the NWSL and MLS in regard to media and media access. And even with, I'm not going to drop any names. I'm not going to drop any club names, but even with PR, I was told when I was doing a story that I needed to send my questions ahead of time. And then the PR person had said that I needed to, send them my story before we published it. And I said, no, that's not a big
whoopsie. No.
Yeah. I said, I don't care. Like, and it was a lot of, only write nice things about blank club. And it's like, I'm a reporter. I'm not a PR person. I understand your mindset, but you cannot limit me and you cannot try to limit me. You're not getting my questions beforehand. You are absolutely not getting my story beforehand. So it's just kind of like, the disparities, because I never had an MLS team ask me that in my life.
Yeah. So
the disparities is just, it's a very interesting topic, and I really, really hope it gets improved.
What do you prefer and I know now we're talking shop here, so some folks, we have, as reporters, we have the option of, as you said, the locker room access, or in certain instances, the mixed zone, which is outside of the locker room where we can request people and then they bring athletes out there. Oftentimes that's when you do something, if you have an intergender kind of game, that way, honestly, we have no business being in there, to be honest with you. But do you prefer the locker room access? Do you feel like that allows the player to get a little more intimate with you? Or do you prefer the mix zone where you're sharing them with 4 different reporters?
I prefer the locker room access because in most ways too, the mix zone, during the final a lot last year, I understand that Chicago was upset that they lost, but we maybe talked to 4 players in total from the Red Stars because we had tried to grab, quote unquote grab, not actually physically grab players.
Hey, you, Julie, come here.
Get over here and talk to us. You just lost, but we're going to make you talk to us. But they would just walk right by us and not even acknowledge us. And, there were some people, my friend Amy, I think her name's Tenery, she writes in New York. I'm forgetting the outlet. I'm so sorry, Amy.
Amy in New York, we still love you.
Amy in New York, I love you tremendously. You were the kindest person to me at the final. But she was like, I don't know how I'm going to do this because I was told I need to talk to so and so, and they just walk right by and everything. So the locker room access is definitely much better. It is much more intimate. I got to kind of almost do a feature style interview with Kelvin Leardom because I was the only one who wanted to talk to him. The other reporters, they kind of gathered around, maybe asked him a question or two about the game,
Mhm.
but then it was me and him for like 10 minutes just talking
Oh
about
yeah.
Suriname, the Netherlands, and like how he likes Seattle and like all of this kind of stuff. And it was just, I'm apologize if you can hear my dogs, by the
You're
way,
fine.
but it was just so much more like intimate and special. And it for it being my first time at an MLS game, it was a life-changing experience. And I got to kind of taste the gold and then go back to the NWSL and have to deal with, mixed zones and all that kind of crap. And it was just like, yikes.
Do you have, I know I talked to you a little bit off air about a favorite interview. Do you have kind of one that takes the cake so far in the time that you've been doing this?
That's a great question. I have a
I
local
get
one
paid
and a
for great. I get
national
paid for
one.
great questions. I'm just kidding.
I have a local one and a national one.
Okay. What's your local one?
My local one was interviewing Taylor Washington when he played for the Riverhounds,
Okay.
because that was when I was, getting back into my faith, and he was very much into his faith. And we just sat and talked about religion for like 30 minutes.
Oh
And then
wow.
we got
Okay.
to soccer stuff. It was great. And I told his story and I said, this guy sat with me, talking with me about, God and theology and all kinds of stuff. So that's what my story on him needs to be about, because
Sure.
that's where he was the most passionate. Like he was getting into it. He plays for Nashville SC right now. If viewers don't know him, you need to at least follow him on social media. He's hilarious and funny and just great. But yeah, Taylor was probably my favorite local interview. I really, really enjoyed that. He was also kind of hard to understand because he was eating a cookie the whole time. So that was,
Was it chocolate chip?
I think it was M&M.
Okay.
But he had a cookie and he was really nursing that cookie for a while. But my favorite national interview, I am not, I need to put a PSA out there for the women's fans who are listening. I am not a women's fan that is like, death to men. Men can't do things. We only like when the women do good things. It's like, no, I support both the men and the women.
I appreciate that. Thank you for not killing me
You're
during this
welcome.
portion of the podcast.
No death to men. Bad men, maybe. No death
Yeah.
to men.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
but I am very much into, both national teams. I love covering both leagues. I love covering both national teams. And probably, I feel like, and this is no knock to the players because they have busy schedules and lives and everything, and they probably want to talk to families afterwards. But I always feel like when I talk to the women's players on the national team, they're very rushed. They just want to get out of
Yeah.
there. They want to get the
Get on the
heck out of
bus
there.
and get out of there.
Yeah, they want to get back to the hotel. But when I was in not Columbus, in Cleveland last year for the Gold Cup, and I got to talk to players like Christian Roldan, Zach Steffen, Tim Ream. Tim Ream, by the way, one of the best interviews solo that I've ever had in my life. Nobody else wanted to talk to him. I felt so bad. So it was just me and Tim standing there for about 5-7 minutes, just talking.
You're like, so what do you do? He's like, I play soccer. What do you do? You're like, oh, I write
I
about
was
soccer.
like, little me, I was like,
Isn't he like
hey
6'2"
Tim, do you want
too?
to
Isn't he
talk?
just massive?
He's like 6'2". So I was like, hi, Tim. And he goes, you want to talk to me? I said, yeah, I want to talk to you. So he came over all excited and everything. I got to see the beard up close and personal.
Oh God.
It was, and then I had to text Pollard about it and be like, you need to work on your game.
That was my next question.
Yep. Matt and I always joke about his beard constantly. But the U.S. men's players, like those interviews last year over in Cleveland were probably my favorite interviews on the international level.
How special, and I know this is kind of, again, this is a question for you and I, but maybe some folks out there can appreciate it. When you hit an interview and you hit a stride with somebody and you make that personal connection with somebody, how special is that? Like, explain the hit of dopamine that you get when you get that special moment that you share with somebody. I know for me, when I told you, my favorite interview, for those that don't know, is I did an exclusive with Sofia Huerta down in Cincinnati. And the fact that I told her I believe I was the first reporter to tell her that she was the first female to play for and against the United States. And she looked at Aaron Heifetz, the press officer, and was like, is that right? And he's like, yeah. She kind of had that, oh, wow, kind of moment of like, wow, I did something cool. That was a moment for me where I had that dopamine hit. And then we really connected kind of on a personal level where it was, you're able to see past the jersey. You're able to see the beating heart inside of that player. How special for you is it? Because I know I get that moment where it's like your two minds connect and you're both on a like-minded kind of moment with that subject. What's that feeling like for you when you hit that interview correctly with somebody?
It's awesome. It's like, you just talk, you won't even ask questions anymore. I got to talk to Gina Lewandowski, who plays for Sky Blue FC a couple weeks ago. And, she had asked me
That was a
like,
great
oh, by
piece,
the
by the way. I'm sorry.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that. She'd asked me like, where are you based? Are you local? And like, why couldn't we, do this at like the club or something? I said, oh, I'm in Pittsburgh. She was like, no way. I have family in Pittsburgh. And we were just talking about Pittsburgh for like 20 minutes. And it was awesome because she's a PA gal too, but she's over, by like Bethlehem and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
So that was really cool. Like, it just gets to the point where you don't ask questions. Got to do a piece on Caprice Didasco as well. And she like, I love Hawaii. I love everything about Hawaii. I've never been to Hawaii, nor have I ever surfed, but I love
Fun
the
time.
concept
Fun
of
time.
all of it. Yes, someday,
I bet I've been
sometime.
there. It's wonderful.
Oh, I want to go so badly. And I just blurted out to Caprice when we were talking about Hawaii. I was like, oh, I love Hawaii. And she was like, oh, have you been? I said, no, I just love Hawaii. And she was like, let me tell you why you should love Hawaii even more. And she was just going in talking about Hawaii with me. And it was awesome. And, I think she's definitely going to help me get there one day.
She's like, yo,
Awesome.
Kahuna, come here. Let me tell you about Hawaii, man.
She's like, I need to tell you about like surfing. It's awesome. And I was like, oh my God, I want to surf so badly. And it was just so cool. And, when you hit that spot with these players, it is just really, really special.
And I mean, they get so much crap on social media and stuff. So then when they realize, the writers aren't so bad. Yeah, let's go talk to them, and you get those relationships. But let's get back on task now. Let's bring it back on task here. Second day of the tournament kicks off tomorrow. Holy mackerel. Are you ready for that? I mean, oh my gosh, it's going to be another day. So we get the start of the day with the Houston Dash and the Utah Royals here. Sans Kristen Press, as we said, at 12:30 on CBS All Access. The late game featuring the Fighting McCall's Bonies, Sky Blue FC as I refer to them. I have to tell you a McCall's Bony story from last year anyway, against Old Rain. McCall's Bony, by the way, I first off, let me rewind back to Saturday. I feel like the Courage missed her massively. I feel like her presence down there. Denise O'Sullivan and Samantha Mewes were kind of just wandering around like, where's McCall? Where'd she go? I see Abby Dahlkemper wearing number 7, but that's not McCall Zerboni. No, I love McCall Zerboni. I think she's a great human, but she's also a very nice person that will probably rip your face off if you have the soccer ball in the middle of the field. What do you think of McCall Zerboni? She's a hoot, but I am also very scared of her.
Yeah, I think she could kill me, and I think that's awesome. But I think she's great. I do like that she's at Sky Blue. I agree. I think they definitely missed her, and they're definitely going to need to figure out how to not replace, because I don't think you can replace a player like her, even like not even just on the pitch, but like as a leader and as a voice for the team, and as somebody who yelled, "We're effing winners."
I love that, by the way.
I mean, I'll swear on this podcast, but I won't go that far.
I love that, by the way.
She's great, and she's always pumped up, and she's always excited, and I love it. And I think she's what Sky Blue needs. And I believe, I don't remember who wrote it, but someone, I think it was Dan Laletta at Equalizer, wrote about McCall, kind of, picturing her as the player to watch for Sky Blue. And he said that she's not trying to bring her North Carolina style to Sky Blue. She's not trying to transform the club into something that it's not, but she's going to bring her own self. And I think that is the best thing that McCall Zerboni could bring to Sky Blue. So I cannot wait to see her in that midfield with Midge Purse and with like Amani Dorsey behind her. And Oh my gosh, it's gonna be
She's going to have that
awesome.
Jersey fight in her where I think it's going to be like if somebody gets at one of her teammates, she's just going to come up and just like, just wallop them basically. And I think that first off, she's tattooed, so she's a badass, by the way. I think that, that makes her look like that junkyard dog. But I just think she's a wonderful player. She's a great human. I remember at the end of the Courage Dash game that I was at last year, she's around doing like the Mahalo, like hang loose sign to everybody and everything. And I was like, dude, all right, McCall's Bunny, let's do this. Do you have let's have a little bit put your hat on. We need your thinking cap on for a second. So Houston Dash, Utah Royals, who gets out of that game alive? Obviously everybody gets out of that game alive, but who is victorious after that game?
I have to be a Houston fan because of Veronica Latsko, our Pittsburgh native, who is on the Houston Dash. But I think that Utah Royals get out of it. I think they are going to miss Kristen Press, but I am so freaking excited to watch Zierra King. I am like so ready for it because she played in the ACC with NC State, and I got to see her live in person, got to talk with her before the match, called that for the ACC network, and it was so much fun. She is such a great player, one of the nicest people on the planet, and I can't wait to see her just totally ball. I'm giddy with excitement about her and Amy Rodriguez forming a partnership together.
A-Rod's back, baby.
A-Rod is back. There's no Kelly O'Hara tomorrow, too. She's on the injury list. But, like I said with these national team players, I don't know if it's quite, hit or miss with them because of how much they were gone last year and what the clubs did without them. So I'm excited to see what Utah does defensively to kind of shift things around. I think Utah gets out very narrowly. I think it's going to be a close one. I think it's going to be kind of like that junkyard dog type of battle. It's
we
just
love
going to
those
be
scraps.
It's going to be scrappy.
We love chaos in front of the net. We love poachers' goals. That's what we're going for. Personally, I hope in the NWSL, I believe the kits are just out of this world this year.
Oh, they're
amazing. I think Utah's navy blue with Houston's orange tomorrow will be a beautiful color palette. If that happens tomorrow, you will see my Twitter just explode because that will just be a wonderful color palette to look at. I think that would be very exciting. You got really bright there. You opened up your screen there. This is great.
I don't know what I did. There I am.
There she is. Okay, second game that we have here is the Old Reign against the Fighting McCall Zerbonis. I think this game is a coin toss because you look at these two rosters. You have a redone OL Reign squad with the likes of Sofia Huerta, who I think is going to come into this tournament absolutely just hungry because she's got this chip on her shoulder where she wants to get back into the U.S. women's national team rotation again. Same thing with McCall Zerboni, too. I felt personally, I think in 2018, I wanted more McCall Zerboni in a lead up to some international competition because I think she's a very stabilizing presence. But when you have Julie Ertz in the middle of the midfield, it's going to be really hard to get any type of playing time behind a player like that. But I think these are two of the more hungry teams. And I think, honestly, we could see, dare I say, a Washington Spirit situation where both of these teams are very hungry, very good, could be very organized tomorrow. What do you think about that, Miss Kriger?
I am so excited to see Shirley Cruz in the NWSL. Don't ask me why, but I love Costa Rica. I love everything about the Costa Ricans. I'm all about.
You're very worldly.
I'm not anti-U.S. women's national team, and I'm not anti-Canadian women's national team. But I want more. I want more growth in CONCACAF, and I want more competition. And I think Costa Rica is one of the better teams. I think they were robbed of a World Cup trip last year.
You said that emphatically.
Yeah, I was there. There are many thoughts about it. We could do like a whole show based on me yelling about Costa Rica, and it would be it's a great
place.
It would be never been there, but I love it. But I love the Costa Rican national team, and I cannot wait to see Shirley Cruz. And in a couple weeks, Shirley Cruz versus Rocky Rodriguez in the first ever Costa Rican showdown in the NWSL.
That sounds like a boxing match, by the way.
Oh, it's going to be a boxing match, and it's going to be amazing. But I think that these two teams are two teams with a ton of reconstructing, and I think Caprice Dydasco sadly tearing her ACL and kind of putting the defense in a limbo is going to hurt Sky Blue FC more than I think many people realize. I think it's a good team. I like the work that they're doing. I like Freya Kum, but I think OL Reign gets out of it tomorrow because I think they have a squad with a lot more experience.
How long until Ada Hegerberg comes to the Reign on a loan? Because I feel like that will happen, especially when she's recovering from a
Next year.
torn ACL. That's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking it's
Her
only a
and
matter of
Wendy.
time. That's what I'm thinking. It's only a matter of time, and then they're just running the league. They're just going to run the league.
Yeah, everyone's going to forget about the U.S. women's national team players when they get here.
They're going to be like, so for me coming into Saturday, let's imagine we're back at a zero slate. Everybody is zero games have been played in the tournament. My power ranking, my top three were North Carolina, Chicago, Portland. After Saturday, I feel like my power ranking is now North Carolina, Washington, Portland. Fair assumption? Would you make any changes in that at all or anything like that?
I would take Portland out of there. I think my ranking would be OL Reign, Olrain.
Olrain. Olrain is one?
Olrain. Olrain. No. Olrain
Okay.
at 3.
Okay.
Olrain at 3. Washington at 2, and North Carolina obviously at number 1. But I think that Utah is right behind in that number 4 spot.
Is Chicago in the top 5 or are they 6?
They're 5.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure. Yeah, I mean, it's if we think about it, and again, sorry, Chicago contingency that's listening, Yuki Nagasata was not your number 9. She needs to go out wide. She needs to go do something.
She was too high up.
Run Ojai Watt at a false 9 or something like that. Have her hold the ball up or have her get like some sort of opportunity. They got to find a 9. Sam Kerr is just leaving too big of a gaping hole, and everybody's like, I feel like the team's mantra right now is, it's fine, Sam will fix it. And then they look around and they're like, oh, she's not here anymore. Like, oh, okay. Well, Bianca
they were spoiled for 2 years.
Well, yeah, but Bianca St. George's too. I mean, if you look at that defense too, I think that's a great defense with Bianca St. George's, Tierna Davidson, if she's healthy, Sarah Gordon, who will hopefully never play center back again, even though she did a decent job. I like Sarah Gordon much more the outside back than I do as the center back.
Agreed. And Nair was really rusty on Saturday night.
Nair looked like vintage really Red Stars Nair that I saw, like chasing the ball around. I'm like, what are you doing? Why are you running 20 yards to go chase that ball, dude? What are you doing? But I think it's scary times for Chicago. But we've talked a lot of NASL, or not NASL, RIP NASL. We missed them. Indy 11 back in the NASL, Jacksonville Armada, all those guys.
Oh, Jacksonville
Armada. There's an obscure reference for everybody. We've talked a very long time. We've said a lot. I think we need to fit in a second show somewhere along the line here.
I agree.
Miss Kriger, if you would plug yourself, what are you working on? What can we be on the lookout for you here down the pike?
Pretty much, I'm not doing a lot of writing in regard to analysis for Equalizer. I'm doing more social media in that regard for the tournament. Me and Jeff kind of sat down and said we really wanted social to be the best it's ever been, and we're just going to try to hammer that out. Doing a lot of writing, though, over at Last Word on Soccer, so definitely check out that. Pittsburgh Sports Castle podcast comes back this week. Whoop, whoop. That's not really soccer. That we are going to talk a little bit about the Riverhounds eventually, even if I am the only one on staff that cares about soccer. I will make them listen to me. But we have a great show coming up this week. I know, I'm a soccer nerd.
Who's your guest?
We're doing our Penguins preview, though, so it's exciting.
Crosby.
We're gonna have a lot of fun doing that. I enjoy the guys that I do the podcast with, and they've got some really good thoughts and charisma. But a lot in regard to the NASR, we're gonna try to get membership open soon. It's not open yet, but we're gonna try to get that rolling and get that going because we have been behind because of COVID, because we are also human beings. But yeah, a lot of stuff working on. Summer class started this week, so
baby.
Gearing up for that, and then I have one more class to go in that program, and then I start another program in September.
Oh baby. So that's another thing I want to. That's another thing I want to talk about too. Let's kind of pimp out Nasser here for a second, because when I try to explain to people that I'm a member of Nasser, North American Soccer Reporters, for other people that don't know that, it's very weird to explain to somebody, and I almost feel like I am in a conclave of where we get our robes on, we put them up over our heads, come in with candles, and we vote on things and we talk about things. For people who don't know, in terms of the world of soccer, for people that don't know what Nasser is, explain it. As somebody in a high position there, explain Nasser to somebody.
Explained, even though my high position is quite altered this year. Nasser, our North American Soccer Reporters, is a hub. We don't really have like a women's branch because that's the NWSL Media Association, so they kind of take care of their business. But we are, pretty much men's soccer oriented. We work with MLS for voting on Player of the Week. We work with voting for other types of awards. We're trying to get more not recognition, because they do recognize us, but getting more involved with the CPL, and we're going to try to reach out with our Spanish media liaison and try to do some more work with Liga MX. So a lot of exciting things going on over there. It's a great group. We have a lot of members. It's a very good networking tool, and it looks great when you are emailing PR people too. So definitely helps a lot.
I don't know why people answer my emails most of the time, but then I'm like, oh yeah, that's in my tagline, and then they're like, oh, I should answer him. That's interesting. But
Right.
then you guys made the terrible mistake of letting me in, which I have no idea why you did that.
Hey, that
But
was the old regime.
that was it. Oh yeah, that was Tannenwald. Blame him. That was his fault there. And Gatrick, that was Gatrick's fault too. Rachel, we've said everything that we can say. Thank you so much for joining me today. And until next time, we're going to do this again, hopefully in person, maybe someday. But take care of yourself. Send me some Permane Brothers. I look forward to seeing it in about 5 days.
All righty, man. I'll definitely send that on my way.
Thank you, miss.